I'm Andrea, a passionate DEI advocate and consultant on a mission. Join me in each episode as we celebrate diversity, ignite conversations, and craft workplaces and educational institutions where everyone thrives. This podcast is my commitment to making a meaningful impact on the world of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So are you ready? Let's get Diversifused. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Get Diversifused podcast. I'm your host, Andrea Horton-Mericli, founder of Diversifused DEI Consulting and a passionate DEI advocate and ally. In today's episode, we will discuss the transformative power of belonging and discover how actionable strategies for DEI can change lives on belonging, transforming lives through DEI action with our guest speaker, Julie DeLucca-Collins. Julie is a highly sought after speaker, business coach, and author dedicated to empowering entrepreneurs to build and grow successful businesses as the CEO of Go Confidently Services. With a passion for helping women establish and expand their brands, Julie has become a trusted advisor for many women out there. Certified in tiny habits, Julie leverages her expertise to guide individuals toward positive behavioral changes that lead to lasting success. As a dynamic speaker, Julie has captivated audiences with her insightful talks and has been featured on prominent media outlets such as ABC, NBC, and Fox. She was a speaker on the TEDx stage at TEDx Mellon Street in November 2023. Her expertise has also been shown on a broader scale as she serves as a member of the Governor's Council for Women and Girls in Connecticut. Now that I know what CT means, I was going to ask Julie what that was. She lives in Connecticut. So it's the Governor's Council for Women and Girls in Connecticut. So Julie, welcome to Get Diversifused. Thank you so much for being our guest today.
Thank you so much for having me. Oh my gosh, I can't believe they send you that whole thing to read. Andrea, that you should have just said, "This is Julie, welcome."
I like to give
like, oh wow, that's a lot. Who's sending that long bio now? A mouthful.
I love giving a nice thorough intro for our listeners because
you're so kind. Thank you.
Of course. So why don't you expand a little on your bio and tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and what got you started in what you do?
So many different beginnings, but I'll give you the latest beginning because I think that it puts everything into context. I was laid off in March 2020 after a incredible, what I consider a wonderful, wonderful learning career in corporate America, climbing the corporate ladder, learning so many lessons. I began as a teacher way before I went into corporate, and I worked for an educational company for many years. And again, put in my time to grow and change, evolve, get to the next step. And one of the things that I found going through corporate is that although I was working for some incredible organizations that did a lot of really great support for their employees, the higher I got in the corporate ladder, there were not so many people like me, a woman or a minority woman at that matter. And I knew that I wanted to go back and help those that are coming behind me, kind of send the elevator back, and I would go back in there and come up with them and take them to the next level. I really feel passionate that we need to have these sponsors around us. And the biggest thing that I would hear is, "Hey, Julie, congratulations on that promotion. Oh, I wish I was as confident as you are. I just could never do that." And it got me thinking that even in those moments in which I worked really hard, I was not always confident. I didn't always have it together. The one thing that kept happening is that I kept showing up. I kept doing the work, even when I didn't feel like I could do it, even when it was scary as heck. But really, the best way to continue is to find the evidence that I was doing it. And when I got laid off, my initial intention, and I knew this is something that I really wanted to do, is to start coaching. I had gotten my coaching certification back in 2016, 17, but never pursued it, mainly because the company that I was working with at the time, which I, was incredibly honored to be there, because the founder of the company had become a mentor, a friend, and she really was doing some incredible work to expand. She passed away, and
I'm sorry.
I wanted to help the company continue to bring her legacy to the world. So that's one of the reasons I didn't leave. But when I got laid off, I thought, huh, I know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to go out on my own and help other women. And that's how
Nice.
I kind of got started. But the one thing that started to happen, kind of by surprise, is that although I wanted to help women in their career, and I still
Hmm.
do, I do some executive coaching still. Many women would come to me and say, "Hey, Julie, do I need an LLC? Hey,
Mm.
Julie, I don't know anything about marketing. How do you market? What should I advertise or what should I do?"
Yeah.
And I started to think how easy in my experience had been to help businesses grow to multi-million dollars. And I knew that for myself in the very beginning, as I launched my business, I struggled a lot. I
Hmm.
struggled to know, like, okay, what should I do? How do I get clients? How do I do this? And then all
Yeah.
of a sudden I got to thinking, Julie, you got to run your business like a business. And once I started doing that, everything changed. And now I wanted to do that for these women who were struggling to have that consistent income, get those clients, and really all of them and all of us who are starting a business
Hmm.
is because we have something deep that we're passionate about and we want to help others in that thing that we really know. And that's really what I am doing now. And that's where I am today. I still love to speak on diversity and inclusion and belonging. I feel that
Hmm.
that's one of these conversations that we cannot move from the table. It's a
Yeah.
conversation that has to stay in the forefront, especially in these
Hmm.
climate where don't even get me started. But definitely, I am passionate to really be able to bring to the table my thoughts, my experience, and again, help to support those that are coming after me.
Yes. Yeah, what you said really resonated with me because but before the podcast started, we were talking and told you I informed you that I launched my
Mhm.
business just last fall, and this podcast came out of it as a way to help promote my business in DEI consulting and to expand my network. So
Mhm.
yeah, everything you said, all those self-doubts and that imposter syndrome, and you're not good enough, or I'm not good enough, or
Mhm.
I don't have certifications or credentials, or
Yeah.
there's so many other people out there doing the same thing that are probably better than me and have been doing it a lot longer. We start making all these excuses, and it starts bringing our self-esteem down.
Mm,
And
mhm.
what you had said with before you were laid off in March, how you were noticing that as you progressed uh, higher and higher up the corporate ladder, um, the diversity in the room started to decrease, and you're like, where are
Yeah,
my peeps? Where are the other women
absolutely.
executives? Where are the
Yep.
other minorities? And you recognizing that was very important because it
Mhm.
sparked something. Sounds like it sparked something in you to want to mentor others to gain that confidence in order to be their best selves, to be their authentic selves, to bring everything they are to work and into what they do. And mentorship is such a big part of DEI
Mhm.
initiatives.
Oh,
And
100%, 100%.
yeah, yeah. And so I'm so glad to hear everything that you had said. I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah,
It's
well,
wonderful.
that's one of the things that really propelled me also to do my TED Talk, and one of the
Mm.
things that I talk in the TED Talk is the intersection of belonging, habits, confidence, and
Yeah.
how none of us, right, feel like we have it together.
Hmm.
You just talked about that, and
Yeah.
the more that we dwell on the, "Oh, I can't," or
Hmm.
I don't have," or "Who am
Hmm.
I to be doing that?" Right?
Hmm.
The more that we stayed on the sidelines. There's a
Yeah.
quote, by diversity and inclusion, expert, uh, Verna Myers
Uh-huh.
and Vernee Myers, I'm sorry, Vernee
Renee.
Myers,
Okay.
and she says, um, "Diversity and inclusion, diversity is having a party, and inclusion is being asked to dance at that party."
Yes.
And that
I've heard
really,
that.
I believe, and again, I use the quote in my TEDx because I know that when I showed up at the party in my corporate
Mm-hmm.
career, they were many instances in which I wanted to stay in the sidelines because I
Yeah.
didn't see someone like me. And I
Mm-hmm.
know that there's other instances in which women or minorities or individuals that are not well represented are also
Yeah.
staying in the sidelines.
Yeah.
Um, but that is our cue to say, wow,
Mm-hmm.
I don't see anybody like me, but I'm going to take a step into the dance floor and really give yourself that little push to even take a small step, right? Because then that can create the momentum for you and the evidence that you can do it, that you showed up, and then you start
Mm-hmm.
to build your confidence. And that's something that is definitely missing for a lot of us.
Mm-hmm.
And by the
Yeah.
way, there's nothing that really, you can have all the education, the courses, the
Yeah.
credentials, but a lot of times what people want not to see your credentials,
Mm-hmm.
not to see what your accomplishments are for yourself, but they're looking to see what is the transformation that you can help them achieve for themselves. And
Mm-hmm.
that's very key. And a lot of times
Yeah.
we forget that. Why did we start? We want to help others, we want to create an
Mm-hmm.
impact. And that's where we should focus because every time that we say, I can't do it, I'm not
Yeah.
good enough, then we are cheating somebody of the gifts that we do have.
Mm-hmm. And we're cheating ourselves. For
100%.
not, yeah, for not being our true authentic and best selves and
Yeah.
doing something that we know we love and
Mhm.
are 100% passionate about. I love that quote too. I forgot who had said it. Brene Smith. Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's because once you step out on the dance floor, you realize other people don't really know how to dance either, and they're just out there having fun and
Yeah.
getting involved and doing their best. And it's what you had said earlier, is like you have to show up and you have to keep showing up.
Yeah.
And because if you show up, people are going to notice. People are going to say, hey,
Yeah.
she's trying, and she's back again, and oh, she didn't
Mhm.
let that snafu
Right.
deter her. And because everybody makes mistakes, nobody's perfect, nobody knows everything.
Oh,
It's like parenting, there's
100%.
no manual.
There's no manual. And by the
Yeah.
way, when we don't tell people that we made a mistake or that we didn't get it right,
Yeah.
we're really continuing to normalize that there's this thing as perfection, but there's nothing in there that will be more detrimental to an organization or to a person, but that myth of perfection that we
Yeah.
seem to carry. And
Mhm.
I remember in my first organization that I worked for many years, we we tried so hard to show that we can do it. And if we can't do it, it's important to be able to say, I can't do it. I need help.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
that's what individuals need to be able to remember that it's not a weakness that you're asking for
Mhm.
help. If anything, it is actually a very strong trait and character that you can
Yeah.
say, hey, I'm over my head. I need you.
Yeah. Because I mean, if you try to figure it out as you're going along, and some people do, and they get it right, but there's so many others that get it wrong, and then
Yeah.
that's what people are going to remember of
Oh,
you is
100%.
yeah, and that you didn't ask for help, and you got it wrong, and
People will remember that you got it
yeah.
wrong.
Hmm.
Because it's a failure. And again,
Yeah.
I hate to categorize failure as bad, but things can happen, right? It can have
Yeah.
repercussions if something
Hmm.
doesn't go right.
Yeah.
But the reality is that if you're asking for help, people are going to not remember that. People are going to say, "Oh, that was great. Look at them." And
Hmm.
look at they
Yeah.
were able to accomplish because they
Yep.
asked for help.
Yep. and and that's how people learn. It's like, even
Mhm.
if you do fail, you should look back at what assess what happened, the
Yeah.
situation, and learn from that. uh and because failure is a part of growth, for
Yeah,
everyone.
someone just said to me, failure or fail is
Hmm.
the acronym for first action in learning. And I
I
thought,
heard that too, and yeah,
so freaking brilliant. I love that.
it is, yeah. It's I'm sure there's shirts on that. I need to find one because
Yeah,
that is,
right?
yeah,
Maybe we
such
need
a
to
great
make those
acronym.
shirts.
Yeah. um but I was thinking about how you were saying before. Oh, it popped out of my head. Shoot. So we were talking about showing up, and then women being in the room, and leaders. It's I lost my train of thought. Oh, well, let's go on to
I'm
the next
sorry.
That's okay. No worries. No worries. My podcast is a natural conversation. Sometimes we
I love
forget
it.
things.
I love it.
So,
Amazing.
can you share a pivotal moment or experience from your personal journey that
Mhm.
highlighted the importance of belonging in the DEI space? And because you had said you have given talks about DEI, and
Mhm.
also can you share something from your past
Yeah,
experience?
absolutely. Well, I have a I don't want to use the word complicated, but I have my background, I guess.
Hmm.
I'll just share it. My mom is from El Salvador.
Okay.
My dad is from New York, from Italian descent and Puerto Rican descent.
Okay.
I have a little bit of everything. And growing up in El Salvador, I was born there. I was there until I was 10. But growing up in El Salvador, I was always told that, well, I was not El Salvadorian, that I was an American. I was a US citizen.
Mm.
And when I would come to New York to visit my dad's family again, it was a very sheltered experience, but I knew that I was a little
Mm.
different. I wasn't necessarily very Puerto Rican, and not a
Right.
lot of our family had that Italian. We weren't around a lot of the Italian part of the family. And then when I moved to Miami, because my mom had left El Salvador since the war started, and when I moved
Mm.
to Miami, I was really excited. Oh my gosh, I'm finally going to belong. I'm finally going to be in, where I can be myself because I don't belong in El Salvador, right? It ended
Mm.
up that I didn't belong there either.
Yeah.
It ended up that I too was the person that was the odd man out. I didn't belong with the Cuban American kids. I was
Hmm.
too light for the African American kids and too dark, for well, overall, didn't fit in.
Hmm. Yeah.
And that caused me to be robbed of my confidence for many years. And I started to realize that if I wanted to do certain things, I needed to push myself and out of that
Mm.
comfort zone, like we talked about. And I started to then do that, and of course, things changed. My zip code changed. I moved to a new school, was more accepting, etcetera, and continued to really thrive with my friends. Went to school, went to college, but I very rarely, right? I go by Julie DeLuca, but my real name is Maria Juliana Guadalupe
Yep.
DeLuca Rivera Pino Espinal, right?
Yep. That
I have
sounds very
Sounds
Latinx.
right? You get it, right? So, but I've never really talked about that being my first name. I don't go by Maria because my sisters are Maria as well. So it was kind of awkward to have three Maria DeLucas. So we
Hmm.
all go by our middle name. And when I got to corporate and I started to climb the corporate ladder again, excelling. And I remember my first big event that the company was putting out a big conference. They asked me to speak. I was going to be in front of the national organization and so many people coming from all walks of life. And I was going to be speaking. And
Nice.
I remember thinking, huh, what if they find out who am I? They're probably going to think like, who the heck am I to, be here? And all of that
Mm.
self doubt started to creep in.
Mm.
And I remember talking to my dad and I said, I don't know if I could do it. He's like, "You've been speaking in public forever. Don't be ridiculous. You know what you're talking about. There's nobody else who's an expert in this topic other than you." And I thought, "No, Dad, I don't know. They're going to find out.
Mm.
And what if they think I speak funny?" He's like, "You don't even have an accent. What are you talking about?" Right. And this is my dad going through. And he said, "Honey, just embrace who you are. Embrace it." And he's like, "And you know
Mhm.
what? Pick a song that is your hype song." And I picked the song and I listened to the song before I went on stage. And as I got to the podium, I said, "Hello, everybody. Welcome. I want to introduce myself. My name is Maria Juliana Guadalupe de Luca Rivera Pino Espinal," right? So not only was it a little icebreaker, but it
Mhm.
definitely helped me embrace who I was because I was talking to this group on the topic of um, socially diverse students and how the work
Mhm.
that we were doing was going to make an impact in students from all walks of life, of different cultures and
Yes.
backgrounds, and the importance of it. And I needed
Yeah.
to show them that with the right tools, the right support, they could be that executive standing in front of somebody else presenting.
Because there was
And that
many
was
in there that
definitely,
identified with you.
yeah, yeah. And that was a pivotal time in which I embraced myself, my full culture, who I was, and put myself out
Right.
there. And again, forget the fear of not being accepted, because the reality is that you are never going to be everybody's cup of tea. But
Yep.
the people that need your kind of tea are the people who are going to really be there and support you through the process and embrace you and embrace your imperfections. And this applies to not only your corporate career, but it applies too when we are in this entrepreneurship world, right? We can't
Yep.
serve everybody. We can't do
That's
it.
right.
And because when you're resonating to everybody, you're sounding like no one. Really find your what sets you apart, and that will be your superpower.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And I wish I was in that audience when I was a college student, because I definitely would have identified with you, because I am also a mixed race, and my mother's a Mexican immigrant and my dad is Anglo. He I always say he's white as can be, because and he's so upset about it, because he did his ancestry and it was like 99.9% United Kingdom, 0.1% Iberian. He was so upset.
Yeah, it sounds like my husband.
And but my mother, she's a mix of all these beautiful
Yeah.
things. Mexican, Mayan, Black, and French, and
Yeah.
it's and who knows what else. Those are just what we know. I wish she would do it, ancestry.com. But yeah,
Yeah,
and
my too.
so
I wish my mom would do that as well, because I was, and I talked about my dad's dad being Italian descent, right? When I did my ancestry,
oh,
it comes back and I was expecting to see, obviously the Hispanic, maybe Native American. I knew my grandparents, their parents were from Spain, so I knew that was going to be in there. The surprise shock of a lifetime. I had like 20 some on percent French. I thought, what? French? Like, where does this come from? And I started to dig in. And my grandfather, my paternal grandfather, he was from Malta, which is French, not Italian. So I
Yeah.
had to break it to my family. Oh, we're not Italian, people.
That's funny.
So yeah. And of course it evolves, by the way.
Yeah.
It's a few years later, but it always keeps evolving. And which goes to show us we are a mix of so many different things, and there's things that we are not aware of. And we carry the best of everything if we allow ourselves to tap into that.
I agree. And yeah, because records weren't kept way back when for the everyday man.
Oh,
and so
absolutely.
and there was so many wars and people crossing borders with trade, and of course slavery, because every country pretty much had their own slaves. So and of all races. So and you never know where you're from, really.
No, not at all.
But back to what you were saying about you not really belonging, like everything you said resonated so much with me, because it's like when I was a military brat, so I never knew my mother even spoke Spanish. My sister said she speak on the phone all the time. It's like, I guess I was too young to, or I never paid attention. I was outside half the time playing, and with my friends on the base. And when we moved we moved to Texas, where both of my parents are from, that's when I heard my mother speaking Spanish. And I was like, wait, what? We were never taught, because my dad doesn't speak it. And my mother came as a child in a time where there were no ESL classes, and you were punished if you spoke your own language. And so it created a lot of introverts out of extroverts, and a mentality of like, they only need to learn English. And I speak some Spanish, but I'm not fluent. That I've learned over the years and all. And but when we moved to El Paso, which is a border town, and I mean, we moved into, after my parents got divorced, we moved into, I wouldn't say the barrio, but it was maybe one or two steps up from the barrio, and which is for those that don't know what a barrio is, it's the very low income, rough neighborhoods in mostly Latinx Hispanic communities.
Right.
And so I felt like I didn't fit in because all my friends are speaking, all my classmates are speaking Spanish, or they were white or black. And it's like, so I got along with everybody, but I also felt excluded. And I was like, I wasn't white enough because I have a little bit of a coloration to my skin, and I wasn't Hispanic enough because I didn't speak Spanish.
You didn't speak Spanish, right? Yeah,
exactly. And so it's all those everything you had said. It was like, oh my gosh,
it's a little bit of everything, and I think that there's so many misconceptions too, right? Because when people found that I had a boyfriend actually, and we actually got engaged, and his parents were adamantly opposed to us marrying because they thought, well, she's only marrying you for your citizenship. And I thought, lady, what are you talking about? My mother went to Georgetown. Like, she's been here since she was 16. Like, I am not, and I've been American citizen my whole life. Like,
I was born in America.
There's so many misconceptions that people have that if you are of a certain race, you're going to be this or that. And we box people in when the reality is that there's so much more than the boxes that we put people in.
Yeah, because humans are so complex. We're more than one identity, one story. And a lot of people look at have a stereotype. They either from the way you look or the way you sound or your religion or what they hear about you, like, oh, she's, her mother's El Salvadoran or Mexican. And it's like, oh, she came over illegally and she crossed the border, and they're taking, there's all these negative connotations that come through because the media
perpetualizes, right? That perpetualize these stereotypes.
Yes.
And it's so important. And by the way, if that is your story, let's embrace it. Let's talk about that.
Exactly.
I've become friendly. We're friends on this online world, right? I interviewed him for my podcast. He also has a podcast. His podcast is called 10,000 Tacos. And
I love it.
You have to listen. He's phenomenal. He's a little snarky, but I love it. But mainly the name of his podcast is 10,000 Tacos because he grew up with his Mexican parents who had a taco truck. And his parents would wake up at the crack of dawn and go take the truck and over the weekends and at night. And that's where he grew up, and in which he has such, and by the way, he is quite successful in his own right now, right? But his parents and the sacrifices allowed him to have the privileges that he has today. And because of that, he doesn't want to forget where he came from. He wants to make sure that people understand the richness and beauty of the culture that others may just take for granted, right? Or may not understand or kind of dilute in some ways as well. So
because
he has a very interesting TikTok, by the way. If anybody is on TikTok, you should go follow him because he is a little snarky on there.
What's his name? I'll put
his name. So it is 10,000 Tacos.
10,000 Tacos.
Oh my gosh! And for the love of God, now you know what? What I'm going to have to look.
Okay.
I don't want to. You know what? He's been on my podcast. We've spoken several times, and wouldn't you know it, I'm like blanking out.
No worries. I can find him with the 10,000 Tacos, and I'll get his
because
name,
you know what he calls himself is he calls himself proud son of a taquero.
I love it.
Yeah. So you're gonna love it. You're gonna love it. But yeah, he's fantastic. I love it.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. But as you said before, if that is your story, if that stereotype is your story, embrace it.
Yeah.
Because that is who you are. That's your identity, but that does not define you either. And unless you want to be defined like that, by that.
Right. Absolutely.
And there's nothing wrong with that, but it doesn't have to define you if you choose not to, if you choose that you don't want it to define you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that there is so many different ways that we can share the richness in our stories with one
Yeah.
another.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Definitely. So before you had mentioned that you did some work with belonging. So how do you define belonging, and what actionable strategies do you recommend for creating inclusive environments that foster a sense of belonging for all individuals?
I think that, belonging starts, believe it or not, and a little bit of what I talked about, belonging really starts with belonging to yourself first. It is, we take ourselves wherever we go. And if we are not comfortable embracing ourselves and belonging to our culture, to ourselves, it's going to be very difficult. We're going to be a chameleon in front of other people. And it's going to be very difficult for people to kind of understand you. And I am a firm believer that if you are to be seen, be known, you're understood. And if you're not showing who you are to people, it's going to be very difficult for them to also understand you, embrace you, and open up to you.
Mm-hmm.
In corporate America, we do so many different things to be politically correct, right? And I do believe that we have to respect who we are in each other, and create the spaces where we're not afraid to say, I am different than you. We're not
Mm-hmm.
afraid to share our stories, because at the end of the day, when we have all these polarizing things, we are human and their stories connect us, because the human experience is the same. We all feel we want to be secure. We all want to have our family be happy. We want to have shelter. And really, in any position that you are, and belong to yourself, really embrace who you are, or work at it, right? Because this is
Yeah.
an imperfect world and it's
Mm-hmm.
an imperfect word. But the more that we commit to saying, this is me, right? This is me. This is what you see. This is what you get. I'm going to be the girl that has a lot of big dreams. I'm also the girl that speaks Spanish. I'm also the girl that loves so many different things about our cultures. I'm also the girl that maybe is not a size 2 also. I'm the
You're
Hispanic
not.
girl too,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And all of these things, when I embrace them, then and I can proudly come to the table, then people invite us to the table as well. And
Mm-hmm.
again, because they see that confidence that comes from knowing who you are, from
Mm-hmm.
understanding what you stand for. And that there's a song, I forget the song, but it's always, and I'm gonna date myself because I know this is going back a long time.
We're about the same age,
Um,
don't worry about
so it
it.
says that if you don't stand for something, you fall for everything. And that is so true in our environments in which we don't have a firm belief in ourselves and in what we stand for, that we we don't get an opportunity to raise our hand and say, "Hey, that's
Mhm.
wrong." Or the way
Yeah.
that you spoke to that person, it's not right. Or what you said, or not having this, right?
Mhm.
For instance, I'm looking at your name,
Yeah.
and your name has the she, her, hers. You have your pronouns.
Mhm.
I typically have my pronouns on here, and people will say, well, why do you do that? Like, I'm a woman. Someone said this to me not too long ago. I'm a woman. I'm proud to be a woman. Women have worked so hard I don't need to have that on. I said, you know what? That is the littlest thing that you can do to
Mhm.
have somebody else who is afraid to share who they are because of the
Yeah.
repercussions, that you're telling them you're an ally, and it
Yep.
gives them permission to be themselves. And I think that
Mhm.
that's why it's important to be who we are and embrace
Mhm.
that, so we can create the space for others as well.
Oh, I
I mean,
love that.
I
I
could
love
I could talk here all day. This is something that I'm
that.
incredibly passionate about, as you can see.
Me too. And I could listen and talk all day too. But I love um, that you brought up that you have to uh, pretty much love yourself first.
Yeah,
It has to come from
absolutely.
within, And that's where the self-confidence and self-esteem comes to play. And if you start loving yourself for who you are, and just because where you're at right now is where you're at right now, doesn't mean you have to be here, stay at that part. You can work hard, whether it's formal education or teaching yourself for the library or online free courses and webinars, just reading and stuff. You can gain that knowledge if that's where, if where you're at right now is where you want to be, you can step outside and start educating yourself. But when you have that confidence, it's almost like a moth to a flame. As you said, people are drawn to it, and you're gonna get those invitations to the table because people are drawn to confident people. They want to be around confident people because it makes them feel good. And
absolutely.
And then confident people, the more your confidence starts to grow, the more you start to, you feel more comfortable talking and raising your hand when you're at the table, speaking out, advocating for others because you've already advocated for yourself, and you're continuing to advocate for yourself. And it, when you look within, that gives you I wouldn't say the permission, but that often the next step is to look outside and start observing and seeing what's right and what's wrong with the world, and who's might being talked over or ignored, or who might not feel like they belong or they can't be their true authentic selves in the workplace, in the classroom, in your family, and it's that self-love is just so important, because that's where to me it all starts, and it's like a domino effect.
Yes. And Andrea, here's the other thing too, right? Self-love also means self-acceptance, self-compassion. And at times we, in an era of Instagram, and this is, for my podcast, right? It's called Casa de Confidence. It is the house of confidence. And by the way, some days we're going to have more than others. But the reality is that I want people to go in this journey to find, what does it mean to be uncomfortable and still try anyway? Because the more that you try, the thing that it's hard, the more that you're teaching your brain that, wait a minute, I can change, I can evolve. Like you were talking about too, take a class. There's so many different things. And in my career, as I hired people, I will tell you, if you had the experience and you were willing to work, I would hire you over someone that maybe had a lot of education, but wasn't willing to work or put themselves out there. There's a room for everyone at the table. Raise your hand, come on in, and, show us who you are and believe in yourself. Believe in your ability to do the thing, even when you haven't seen anybody else. My mom got laid off at 50. It's interesting. So when I was turning 50 and I got laid off at the beginning of the pandemic, that was the one thing that I thought, oh, my mom got laid off at 50. And I decided that I needed to redefine what that story was going to be for me. Because for as much as, again, my mom is a highly educated woman, she went to Georgetown, she studied in Spain at one point. She does pastoral counseling, you name it. She's amazing. But when she was laid off, the story she was telling herself was, who's going to hire me? I'm an old woman. And she needed to redefine that. Maybe someone would say, hey, I'm looking for a younger person, or maybe I need the girl with the mini skirt. That's so inappropriate, but that's what they were saying in the 80s, right? However, you can write your ticket, but that means that it's going to be hard. It's going to be uncomfortable. But when you do it, it's so worth it. And I wrote my own ticket, and here I am. And by the way, it's not all roses, but I do it because I have nieces that are going to watch what I do. There are going to be nieces who maybe choose to have a corporate career and will see that raising your hand, saying, hey, I can do that job, or give me an opportunity, will get them farther ahead. I also have nieces that maybe will choose to be an entrepreneur. And I want them to see that there's difficulties, but you show up and you keep going. And that consistent action will get you the traction that you're looking for.
Yep. Yep. I love that. I mean, yeah, because the only way you fail is by not trying. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and then you can only blame yourself. Even though
100%.
as humans, we tend to make excuses, and we're all guilty of it. Making
All the
excuses.
time.
Yeah.
And it's and by the way, if you didn't try or you fail and stop trying, don't beat yourself up over that.
Yes.
Don't do it, because that's how we go down the shoulda, woulda, coulda spiral.
Mhm.
That's the thing that's gonna hurt you the most. You fail, you didn't get up again. Okay, say, "Oh, I haven't gotten up in a long time. Let me start again." It's gonna be a little harder, but do it again
Yeah.
and do it again.
Yeah.
And the more that you do it, the more that you're going to get to the place that you want to be in.
I agree because maybe you felt because it wasn't the right time, or maybe um it just wasn't the right time, and you need to reassess and
Yeah.
everything, and you take as long as you need to reassess, to invest in you again, and get your inner confidence where it needs to be before you step out again. And
I just told my niece, my 10-year-old niece applied to a magnet school. She lives in Miami, and she applied to a magnet school for middle school.
Okay.
And
Wow, middle school already. Wow.
middle school already, I know. So I can't believe it, but she plays the violin, plays the
Me too.
piano. She's in the
Nice.
principal's honor roll. And she's taking gymnastics and dance, and now she's taking musical theater. So she applied to
Wow.
a specialized program for musical theater, and she found out that she didn't get in. And when I spoke to her on Friday, she was devastated, and she's like, "I can't believe it." And then I'm thinking, like, "Are you kidding me? Like, you got into every other program, and the other programs, some of them were even harder because there were academic programs." And I said to her, I said, "Listen, you know how I did a TEDx in November? That's not the first time I applied. I applied in 2022 and I got denied right away. Like, wrong, sorry, you don't get it." And I sat through the entire year and I didn't apply again because I was so dejected from the rejection, until a friend said to me, "Hey, don't you have that in your list of things that you want to do?" And I said, "Yes." He's like, "Well, when are you applying again?" I'm like, "I don't know." He's like, "Well, you don't apply, you're not going to get in."
That's right.
And
It's
that's
like
what
if you don't play the lottery, you're not
happened.
going to win.
That's right. I applied to 3. I was finalist for 2, and then they said no, and then I thought, "Okay, I have 1 more to go." And I was prepared that if they said no, I started to already look for the next opportunity, because the opportunities sometimes will come knocking, but sometimes you have to have the door open and you need to go in and open the door for them.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. Just there's a whole neighborhood, a whole city of doors. Not
Yeah,
everybody's going to open them for you, and you just go to the next one.
that's right.
And easier said than done.
100%.
But yeah,
100%.
there's always another door, and
Yeah.
but it's always important to also to reassess. It's like if you get denied, or
Mhm.
it's okay to reach out to them to say,
Just
what can I
why?
do? Yeah, why?
Yes.
What are the
Why?
reasons? And exactly. And sometimes they'll tell you, sometimes they're not allowed to, but
Mhm.
sometimes they will. And that's a learning opportunity. It's like, oh, okay. Oh, is that all that was missing? It's like, well, let me
Yeah.
apply again next year, and I'll make sure to make it even better
Yeah.
and include whatever they said I was lacking before.
A
And
no
it's
could be a not right now, my friends.
exactly.
But you'll
And
never know unless you go
mhm,
and ask.
exactly. And sometimes the application was just put in too late, and they had already
100%.
made their choices and would have loved to had you, but there was no room. So
Yeah.
yeah, but you won't know unless you ask.
Yeah,
So
such good advice.
mhm,
I love
yeah.
that. I think that is definitely what we need to continue to share to people, you know? And that's the conversation, because the rooms that don't have you means that maybe they didn't know about you. And you have to be the
Exactly.
one who says, "Hello, I'm here."
with cake or something.
With cake.
With cake.
I love that. I love that, Andrea. It's so good.
And yeah, it's as we were talking, I was thinking of the work my sister does. So she works for the Society of Women Engineers, and as
Ooh,
a
I love
researcher,
that.
I know she has a fascinating job, and it's I'm so proud of her. She just recently got a National Science Foundation grant. Her first
Ooh,
time ever applying for a grant.
good
I was like,
for
oh my god!
her. Oh,
And she's like, I got it.
what a rock star. I
I
love
know. I
it.
was like, what? But
Yeah.
the Society of Women Engineers also has staff members who the whole purpose is to advocate for women and minorities in
Mhm.
the tech space.
Yes.
And so if you're a youngin or if you're already
Mhm.
who's wanting to get into tech or a historically male dominated field, or you're already working in a historically male dominated field, and you don't fit the mold.
Mhm.
Whether you're female, you're a minority, you're LGBTQ plus, whatever it may
Mhm.
be, um, don't let that stop you, because you um, are going to be, or are in
Mhm.
someone's eyes, a role model. and
Yeah.
and there's going to be challenges and barriers along the way, like I experienced when I was at university. I did start in double E, not triple E, double E in electrical engineering, and just got so uh I let it get to me. I was young and I let it get to me, and I ended up
Yeah.
changing majors. And it's don't let people do that to you.
Yeah.
Find the resources, find the support networks, find maybe not even others who look like you, find your allies, the allies.
Yeah. The allies. Absolutely.
Mhm.
I just met a girl, Andrea. We were at a family gathering, and you know what? I'm probably not gonna. It's the company that makes submarines here in Connecticut. I
Oh,
I forget.
I was just watching on Hulu. They had this
Mm,
whole thing, not
yeah.
Blimpie, no, not Blimpie.
No. It'll come to
Oh,
me. Too bad my husband is not sitting here. He
yeah.
will let me know. But, he works at the research center here.
Okay.
But
That's
she is young girl, 23, and she is a master carpenter. And she is the only woman that works in some of these submarines. Um,
Oh, I was thinking
and
sub sandwiches. I'm sorry,
yeah.
submarines.
Oh, no, submarines. No, no, no,
I'm sorry.
submarines. And she was telling us that she was struggling because, there's all the old timers, right? They're
Sexist
like,
remarks
"Hey,
and
honey, what are you doing here?
Mhm.
And where's
Mhm.
your purse?" And she's like, "Are you kidding me? I'm a carpenter. I'm a master carpenter." And she had to
Um,
really hold her ground. And she
yeah,
said that
it's tough.
until she got to that position, there weren't a lot of other women that had
Mhm.
stayed because
Yeah.
they didn't stand up for themselves.
Mhm.
They didn't, say, "Hey, I want to be counted," and they
Mhm.
really kind of gave in to the pressure.
Mhm.
But yeah,
And
so that yeah.
yeah, the trades are. I'm glad you brought up the trades, because the trades are struggling to find people, because a lot of as you said, they're older. A lot of them are retiring, and there's not
Uh
enough
huh.
people going into the trades to learn a trade, to get certified. And this is for all the trades: HVAC,
Yep.
carpentry, welding, auto mechanic. I mean, you name it. It's like uh, um,
Mhm.
uh, bridges and things like that. It's just so they're recruiting. They're trying to get women and minorities,
Yeah, absolutely. And look at all the
and
funding that's going into that. There's one.
yeah.
I spoke at Goodwin University now. It used to be Goodwin College.
Okay.
On DEI in the spring, and one of the things that they have in their campus is
Mhm.
a set of photography that was taken by this world-renowned photographer, but he's only photographed females that are in the trades, in all these different trades. And these pictures, it was so moving as I walked
Mhm.
around and I looked at them because I saw that, wow, they're groundbreakers.
Mhm.
And it reminded me of this young girl, which by the way is General Dynamics electric boats.
Okay, I would have never got that because when you said subs, I was thinking, what submarine
Yeah.
sandwiches?
No, not
Saying,
submarine
but
sandwiches,
then when you said carpenter,
submarines
I was like,
like
oh
in
no,
the
she
yeah.
didn't mean submarine sandwiches. So,
Yeah, so but it was the kind of thing like and I remember this young girl talking about like, "Oh my gosh," and all the things that she's having to go through, and then I see these women who are many of them are in the midlife, right? And they've been in
Mhm.
the trades for a long time, and yet they're highly paid, highly skilled,
Mhm.
and they're
Highly sought
taking their
after.
place and
Yeah.
highly sought after. And by the
Mhm.
way, when you mentioned your sister
Mhm.
is an engineer, I saw
Mhm.
a video um, and it was talking about it was a video to promote STEM education for women.
Mhm.
And it went through it's a 5-minute video, but it went through the history of what it was like for women to go
Mhm.
through that first class of engineering. And it
Mhm.
was a letter from some of the first women engineers and what they went through to get
Yeah.
their job. And
Mhm.
they were writing it to the women coming behind them. And I mean, I was
That's
crying when I saw this
powerful.
video.
That is
It's
powerful.
amazing. I have to go find
Wow.
it because it was
Yeah.
so good, so good. And
Yeah.
we are tasked for opening the doors for others or sending the
Yes.
elevator back down, no
Yep.
matter where you
Yep.
are.
I agree. I agree. And wow. Wow. So speaking of that young woman, the young female carpenter, and all women in trades or in historically male-dominated industries, um, don't feel like you need to put a mask on and change your authentic self. You be your
Oh,
authentic self,
absolutely.
and advocate for yourself and your knowledge and your skills and your expertise, and you will be invited to the table. There'll be,
Yes.
you're going to have the regular roadblocks, but you keep showing up and doing
Mm,
your job and doing it well, and um,
yes.
they're going to see that.
So good.
They're, yeah, everybody will see that. And but be true to yourself. Don't never feel like you have. And this is for anyone. Never feel like you
Mhm.
have to fit the mold.
Yes.
You be true
That's
to
the one
yourself.
thing that people don't realize, you don't
Mhm.
have to, you know, not know that, you don't belong.
Yeah.
And the mold is meant to be broken at times.
Yeah. Just like that glass ceiling.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Yep.
I love that. I love that you
Yeah.
said that.
Thanks. So, how do you, speaking of all these different identities, how do you navigate the intersectionality of identities within the context of belonging, recognizing and honoring the diverse experiences and backgrounds of individuals? So, how do you navigate this?
This is a lot of the work that takes time. It takes really
Mhm.
being aware as well, because I think that sometimes we just operate from automaticity, right?
Mhm.
And really, change of behavior doesn't happen when we're relying on the motivation to do it. We really have to create those automations. And for me, there's times in which I've been conditioned, like many of us,
Yeah.
and people in organizations are conditioned.
Mhm.
And we really have
Mhm.
to, number one, recognize what we want to change. Second, we need to really set that intention and know that it's not an overnight work. Know that it's the
Mhm.
commitment to do it, just like we
Mhm.
would with anything in life, right? Anything that we want to choose to change means that we have to, number one, think, okay, why do I want to change? Why does it mean to me that I'm going to do things differently? And
Mhm.
how and what are the simple things, right? I call it the
Mhm.
law hanging fruit. We can't just overnight rewrite the script, but we
Nope.
can maybe change a word here and there, change
Mhm.
how we respond, and then find people who are already doing it.
Yeah.
Because those are the people that if you commit to working together or to emulating what they're doing or asking them, how did you do this? Right. And that's how I have found that I can do it and I can go through this. But a lot of times we think we have to do it alone and we think that we have to do it
Mhm.
overnight and
Mhm.
we can't. We have to give ourselves the grace that anything worth doing is going to take time, is going to take some, trying again and again until you can refine it for yourself and for others.
I love that. And as you were talking, it reminds me of what you were saying reminded me of Simon Sinek's Start with Why. Why do you want to do this?
Yeah,
and it's
absolutely.
And that's in everything we do. It's like, why? And that's the importance of DEI. Why is DEI so important? What does it affect? What does it improve? I mean, and the why is basically you want your employees to be happy and productive. You want your classmates or your educational institution to be happy and productive, and be themselves, and because especially for nonprofits, but all organizations, word of mouth, is can make or break you. And if an employee is happy, they're going to say great things. They're going to produce it, and they're never going. I mean, they're going to stay and longer. And then if they're not happy, they're going to leave. They're going to want to leave. They're not going to be very productive. They're going to do their minimum. And unless they're very type A, but they're going to do their minimum, and and they're
people are not invested if they don't see people support what they help to build. And that's really, if we're not giving them room to show up and to say, hey, we need you, they're not going to be invested in that. By the way, before I forget, Isidro Salas, 10,000 tacos.
Oh, what's his name? Sorry.
Isidro Salas. It just came to me. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Don't you love
I'm sorry, Isidro. My brain is a little shot today.
I love it. So Isidro, Isidro Salas?
Salas. But yeah, if you Google 10,000 tacos, you'll get him. He's on all the platforms.
I love it. I'm so going to look for him on Spotify.
So fun. Yeah.
But so last question, because I do want to be cognizant of your time. So what role?
Please, I could talk all night.
Me too, actually. So we were talking a lot about self-confidence and how it just attracts people, and it opens up doors for you the more confident you are. And so what role does confidence play in fostering belonging? And how can individuals and organizations support the development of both confidence and belonging simultaneously?
I think that in organizations that are not fully using a feedback model are really missing the boat. I think that organizations that are not providing the opportunities, like coaching, for instance, I think that coaching is incredibly important, and it shouldn't just be for executives. It should be for everyone across the board.
Thank you.
Because this is, I don't want to call it my pet peeve, but it annoys me till no end. Nobody, if I am doing your job, if I'm doing my job, I'm in this role, I'm very good at this role, which proves to the organization I can be promoted. However, if I don't have any leadership training, I'm going to be put in a position in which I'm a supervisor, a manager, and yet I don't have the emotional intelligence or the skills, the soft skills to lead. So why wait till I get to some level of executive level to give me the coaching to continue to build my emotional intelligence, to keep building some of my communication skills, so that I can give positive feedback to others, right?
Yep.
And then in turn, train them and do the turnkey and say, I know this now, not because I've been here forever, but because I've been working on myself. And that confidence for others is going to be the one piece that we can emulate for others, and we can do that reflection. But reflection to others without criticizing is very important.
Yeah. You know who does a good example of just what you had said that you wish organizations would do is the military. They have officer candidate school. So those NCOs who want to be an officer, who may have they may have their degree, but they didn't go through the ROTC at university. So, but they joined afterwards. They have the Officer Candidate School, which is just that.
Yep.
I mean, of course, it's boot camp too, but yeah, it teaches leadership skills. It teaches
Absolutely.
how to lead people. I mean, organization, time management, and so yeah, the military is very good about doing that.
Yeah,
and
they
there are
sure.
some, yeah, it's coming from the military proud of me. But
No, they do. And
and,
you know,
and even the
my
Sergeant Major's Academy, anybody who wants to be a
yes,
Sergeant Major, it's like, which is not an officer yet, but it's just the
yep.
highest ranking
My
NCO.
our nephew, and I, you know, our nephew is actually our age. My husband's nephew, and mine by default as well. He is a sergeant major, and they did such a great job with
Mhm.
giving those opportunities. And guess what? He became a good leader because he had the opportunities, but he had them from very early on.
Mhm.
It's not something that just, you know, and again, we have a level of confidence if we're the firstborn. We have a level of
Yeah.
confidence if we've been encouraged. We have the level of confidence if we've had early successes, but not
Mhm.
everybody is there. And you're going to need to have
Mhm.
some support system
Yeah.
to be able to gain that. And then guess
And
what?
resources.
As an organization, you provide that. You as an organization are
Mhm.
creating the environment in which people will help to build what you're building because they have a
Yes.
buy-in, because they have personally seen the
Mhm.
results for themselves.
And if you give them those tools and that educate professional development, it doesn't even have to be a formal like paid class, but where they have to pay, but you can bring that professional development to them and make it a
Yeah.
requirement for anybody interested in applying to supervisory or management type roles, or
Mhm.
and it has to be a long thing, but it's if you make it a requirement, then they have the opportunity. Those individuals, those employees, have an opportunity to see is this something I'm actually going to like doing?
Yeah.
Not everybody is enjoys leading other people or is good at it,
Right.
even when given the
Absolutely.
tools. So
Yes.
they don't like having to fire people or reprimand people in writing, verbal warnings, and all. It's stepping out of your comfort zone,
Yeah.
not that it happens all the time, but it's like there are and all the paperwork and meetings that come with the higher up you get. Not everybody wants to do that. There's a lot of people that just want to do the work and be the frontline people, and they're
Yeah.
happy, and if that's what they want,
Mhm.
this gives them the opportunity to see if this is something that
Yeah.
that they would enjoy or not.
And you know,
Yes.
as you were talking, I remember one of the last roles in my last role, it was in the C-suite, and there was 2 other women who were in that executive level, and none of them really liked, you know, firing or writing up
Mhm.
people, but
Yeah.
that's because at the end, and I'll never forget this, we had a meeting with other executives. We had some possible investors coming, and we we went into the conference room, and I'll never forget, I was the only one who sat at the table and talk about him,
Mhm.
you know, a total they were sitting on the side, and it
Yeah.
totally pointed to me that they themselves did not have the confidence to sit at the table.
Mhm.
So therefore, it wouldn't be easy for them to be able to say, "Hey, this is not a good fit," or "Hey, I need to
Mhm.
put you in a performance program,"
Mhm.
or "I let me give you some feedback," because they
Yeah.
themselves did not have the confidence in who they were, the role that they had,
Mhm.
and
Yep.
and that's how we empower people in our organizations. Start from the bottom up and meet in between.
I agree, and just because they're higher up doesn't mean that their professional development needs to stop. Also, there's always
Oh,
somebody higher than them usually, and it's up
always.
to that person to recognize, hey, in one-on-ones that they have with them, that they may need some extra
Mhm.
training and support, and
And
also
I'm here in a place in which, by the way, I was in that C-suite and I don't know it all. I don't know it all.
no,
And
yeah,
I coach executives and I have to be coached as well. It's part
mhm,
of the process. It's
exactly.
part of changing our brain is having the neuroplasticity to change it.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, because as you said, nobody knows everything, and mentors need mentors too. And it's part of learning, it's part of growth, and it's getting other what's the word, points of view, ways you may not have seen things before. It's like, oh, I didn't ever thought of it that way. And so it's growing opportunities for both mentor and mentee, actually. So
and that's how we choose to belong, by creating the opportunities for people to come to the table.
I love that. And the opportunities could be ERGs or
ERGs are incredibly important.
Yes. And leaders need to be involved in those, not just the frontline stuff.
Absolutely. It's not just, and you contribute. You contribute because you were in the position that somebody else was long ago. We didn't all start at the top.
Exactly. So I really enjoyed this conversation, Julie.
Oh my gosh, me too. Me too. You need to come on my podcast so we can have a round two.
Awesome. I'd love to. Just send me an invite.
I'll send you an email. We're going to make it work. Absolutely.
Sounds awesome.
So fun. I'm so glad you're doing this type of work. Thank you so much for being committed to the work. Thank you so much for giving yourself the opportunity as well to launch your own consulting firm. I think that this is incredibly important. You are shaping that workforce that's out there. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And that is actually my tagline, shaping tomorrow's inclusive workforce, in my email. It's like, you read my mind right there.
So I will say I do have a photographic memory. So if you've emailed me, maybe I saw that.
Maybe you did. I don't know.
But no, that's so good. I love it. I can't take credit for that if that's your tagline.
All right, listeners. So let's talk about some key takeaways from today's conversation with Julie. We talked about personal journey of belonging. Julie shared her deeply personal, her journey of struggling with feelings of inclusion and belonging, highlighting the profound impact of DEI efforts on individual lives. We talked about actionable strategies for belonging. We learned some practical strategies for fostering a sense of belonging within the DEI space and beyond. And Julie offered actionable insights drawn from her own experiences and expertise as a speaker, business coach, and author. And we talked about intersection of belonging and confidence. We explored the powerful intersection of belonging and confidence and how cultivating a sense of belonging can positively influence self-esteem, personal growth, and professional success. Some next steps for our listeners, some possible next steps for y'all. Reflect on your own experiences with belonging and identify areas where you can take proactive steps to create inclusive spaces in your personal and professional life. Engage in conversations with colleagues, friends, and community members about the importance of belonging and share actionable strategies for promoting inclusivity. Educate yourself on DEI best practices and resources, seeking out workshops, webinars, and literature that addresses belonging and inclusion. Advocate for DEI initiatives within your organization and community, championing policies and practices that prioritize DEIV, and connect with organizations and networks dedicated to promoting belonging and inclusion, leveraging collective efforts to drive positive change. So listeners, I will have some resources for y'all at the end of today's podcast on our last slide of the podcast today. So for the next steps, there will be some resources for you guys.
Amazing.
So thank you, Julie. So Julie, if any of my listeners want to get a hold of you for speaking engagements or to work with you, or maybe to listen to your podcast or to be on your podcast, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Well, the best way is definitely my website is goconfidentlycoaching.com. You can find me on all of the social media platforms and LinkedIn. I am Julie DeLucca-Collins on all of those platforms, but certainly if you listen to the podcast, check it out, and we're a right fit. And that is Casa de Confidence, where we talk all things confidence in the comfort of our home. And we also talk about your journey to go confidently. So make sure that you connect in all those platforms. And I would enjoy, if you hear from you, slide into my DMs. I love to be able to hear from listeners and to find out what's on your mind. What is the one thing that you really took away from the conversation conversations, because this helps us as creators continue the journey to bring you that quality content that we can all continue to grow together.
Awesome. I love that you said that at the end. Thank you so much. And I will, listeners, I will be putting, or I will put Julie's contact information on the last, one of the last slides as well. So you don't have to keep re-listening towards the end, trying to write things down. So it'll all be for you on the last slide and in the summary of our podcast as well, along with the resource links that for possible next steps for you guys. So Julie, thank you so much for being our guest today. Listeners, stay tuned for our next episode as well. Remember, episodes drop every Thursday at 7 p.m. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you, Andrea. Don't forget, go confidently.
Yes. Want to be a guest speaker on the Get Diversifused podcast? I'm on the lookout for guests, so if you're passionate about DEI and would like to share your unique insights, experiences, or success stories, I want to hear from you. If you're a fellow podcaster who's passionate about DEI, let's swap the mic and amplify each other's voices. If you're interested in being a guest, reach out to me at Andrea@Diversifused.com and I'll send you the link to our guest interest form. Hope to hear from you soon. Remember, stay Diversifused. Now go out there and make a difference. And as always, for more strategies on building inclusive workplaces and communities, check out Diversifused. We're here to guide you on your DEI journey. Make sure to visit our website at Diversifused.com and follow us on social media for the latest happenings, blog posts, tips, and events.